Welcome to Good Life. I'm Dean Wilson. So glad you've joined us. You can always find us at goodlifetelevision.org. We're all over the social media sites, and we always post the long form interviews as well as power clips. Some of the kind of the great moments from those interviews are all at goodlifetelevision.org. So we'd love you to check them out. We have great people, all walks of life, famous, not famous, overcomers, entrepreneurs, public servants, just great stories. And that's what we're about at Good Life. It's about the good stuff, not always the easy stuff, but the good stuff. And so that's what we're actually talking about in today's program. I have Paige and Mike Guzman with me. Welcome.
Thank you.
Thanks
for having us.
Yeah, with the Guzmans are in Nashville, Tennessee, and they're college sweethearts. They settled in Nashville. They met at Moody Bible Institute, graduated with plans to pursue vocational ministry, and then they went through some stuff, like we all do. But I was telling them before we came on, I really admire what they've walked through here, and you know, we're never done, but have come through, I should say, and by the grace of God. So I'd just love to hear your guys' story, kind of talk about where you started, where you grew up, and how you met, and then we can get into the rest.
Sure. So I'm a Nashville native. It's kind of a unicorn. A lot of people from Nashville come here, but I was born and raised in the church. My mom says that I came out of the womb loving him, and just had sanctification process, just constantly learning more about the Lord and loving him. I went to Moody Bible Institute to pursue youth ministry. I love teenage girls and just partnering with them in life. I met my husband. Do you want to tell why you went to Moody?
Yeah, I'm Michigan born and raised. Grew up in Detroit, then moved to the suburbs. Had a rough childhood, but overcame a lot. And then I wanted to go to Moody to do just ministry, just to learn how to teach the Word of God. Met my wife there, and I wasn't born and raised in the church, so church culture was still really new to me. So I got a crash course into that, going to Bible college. So we got married in 2011, and we lived in Washington State in Spokane, beautiful state.
Moody had a campus out there.
Okay.
So that's where we lived, and we got married. A couple of years into marriage, we got pregnant with our first kid. And about that time, we decided to move back to Nashville to be closer to family.
Yeah. And so we moved out there, out to here, and it's been 7 years because our daughter just turned 7
Sunday.
So literally, it's been just under 7 years for us. So.
And now you have 4.
We do have 4.
Good grief. Under 7?
You have 5.
So we have 5, but mine are older. You're in the thick of it. They're all under 7 years old?
They're also under 7.
Oh my gosh! Wow.
7, 5, 2, and 6 months.
Oh my gosh.
Two very tired parents.
Yeah. Well, treasures in heaven. Just remember that.
Oh my gosh. It's the best thing we've ever done. Our kids are the loves of our lives. It's the best.
That's awesome. That's great. I want to talk about your podcast a little bit, but I want to talk about kind of what you've been through. And I know that, like we talk about on this program, everybody has a story. Life includes suffering. Life includes difficulty. That's just part of being on planet Earth in this condition that we're in. But I want you guys to just share a little bit about kind of what happened and where you are, kind of what's happened with this story.
So I'll start.
Yeah, sure.
So Mike and I started dating, and that's the time where you kind of get to know each other and talk about just our history. And Mike had been very open from the beginning. He used to be an addict. I didn't know anything about addiction and kind of just thought yay, Christ has redeemed you. It's amazing. So because God does that, God just redeems. he can wipe the slate clean and it's done and over with. But I didn't understand that part of addiction is just relapsing and the stronghold that addiction has in your life. So he was very upfront and honest with me, and I was like, great. I just didn't understand it. I was young and naive. We got married, and I'll let you take it from there.
Yeah, I mean, and I told her the truth. I had dabbled with drugs and alcohol, and I was a big party animal when I was younger. You know,
it was typically pills, though.
Yeah. Typically, my drug of choice was prescription medication, and I dabbled with it, but it was never like super bad, I thought. And then we got married, and it just slowly trickled back in. I did a lot of really big manual labor jobs that were really hard on me. And so I kind of found this excuse to start taking medicine. And then it got more and more and more.
Which is just like sin, you know, like you get an inch and
it takes a mile.
It takes a mile.
Right.
You have to cut it off. To all those listening.
And I did it for a long time. And there were a lot of times where I would get caught by her, like in little ways, you know, like medicine would be missing or something wouldn't add up. And, you know, I told her enough truth to just get by. That way I could be okay with her and still be able to take care of myself. And then we moved out to Nashville, and I didn't know anybody out here. So it was very lonely for me. And I went into a spiral of depression, which caused me to use more drugs and get more access to them. And I mean,
there was a blow up when our daughter was 6 months old, and he had gotten access to drugs, and I told him, like, it's that or us. Like, that was my first understanding of what was happening. And I just said, like, I understand, like, I don't expect you, I've never expected you to be perfect, but you have to choose. He went into Celebrate Recovery. Again, I didn't know much about it. And so I just kind of thought, like, okay, he got the healing that he needed and we're moving on with our life. That was the case.
Yeah. And I mean, and I heard what she said. She said it's us or that. And I was like, well, that's an easy answer. I mean, it's you guys. And that's the lie of sin and addiction, is that it doesn't let you know how much hold it has over you.
Right.
You know, because the answer is easy. I choose my family through and through. And then 6 months later, that it gets you, and then it picks back up. And so, things got really bad about a year and a half ago. I was taking all different kinds of medications from different doctors. And I mean, I was really, really depressed. In our podcast, you know, we go through this. Like, there was a moment where I was sitting in a parking lot after work, and I had a gun in my mouth. I was so depressed. I was so downcast, because my entire life at that point had become, how do I get more medicine? How do I hide my medicine addiction from my wife?
And Mike was the only one who knew the truth. So I would have said, even in those moments, like, yeah, we were going through a hard time, but if he had pulled the trigger, I would have been one of those widows who would have said, I would have never seen it coming. Like, yes. And that's a testament to sin's hold in your life and Satan's desire to keep it a secret. And keep you, meaning Mike, in this world of lies that you just can't see the truth. And because Mike was lying all the time, I didn't know. I had no idea the struggles that he was going through. And I would have said we had a great marriage. We, you can tell we like to have a good time, and we really enjoy each other. And we were still like having a good life, except for Mike was in this internal torment that no one had any idea about. Yeah,
my relationship with the Lord was distraught. My relationship with my wife was based on lies. I mean, it was awful. And I came home and I told her about, you know, like the depression, and I told her about the
He told me suicidal thoughts.
Yeah.
I did not know that he had a gun in his mouth until
we
months
did the podcast.
later. We were recording it. I was like,
she was like, I told her, I said in the podcast, you never told me that. And I was like, oh, well,
there it is. And that's part of it. You have so many things that you haven't told people that it just slowly comes out throughout time. And as the person who wasn't the addict, you could have so much grace for that because it's just part of the process.
Yeah. And I was high functioning. I had a job. We went to church. I had friends. I mean,
we're in community.
I consider myself a really good dad. And
that's a downplay. He is the best father I've ever met in my life. So for all of this to happen, we just didn't, I don't know. I was so caught off guard, guys. I was so caught off guard. The precipice, it all came to light after Mike had that time in the car. He came back and told me just enough that I was like, we're just going to get on our knees before the Lord and we are going to put worship on and we're going to open up our Bibles and we're just going to pray and we're going to pray and we're going to ask the Lord to take this away. And we just did. And we spent maybe an hour and a half in our living room right over there, just like on our knees, proclaiming that we are the redeemed and we need God to save us from this. We need him to take this away from us.
And I was terrified because I felt like everything in my life was a lie. So I was terrified to approach the Lord, and we did wholeheartedly. And I mean, and that was before I even got caught with all the drugs.
Right. That was like the tip of the iceberg.
That was this much of the iceberg. And I haven't had a suicidal thought then, even after, we were planning on divorce and she was, going to leave me. And
right. So right after that was in November. And then in March, this was right as March 2020, pandemic happened. And for better or for worse, a character flaw that I have is when life gets hard, I run.
We go on vacation.
Yes. And it's not great. I don't recommend it, but I like to get distracted and go somewhere else. Your problems will always follow you no matter where you go. It's not a great tactic, but everything was shutting down. Flights were really cheap. Our very best friends live in Buffalo, New York, and me and my two oldest kids went to Buffalo, New York. Mike was working, so he couldn't come, but I had a job that I could take with me. So a couple of days later, Mike joins with us. Do you want to take it from there?
Yeah. And just like your problems, they follow you. My addiction followed me there. I found myself not even being there for 6 hours, and I was rifling through their medicine cabinet. And these were dear friends of ours who love us and who have loved us through this. And then, so it shows my depravity that I'm willing to do that.
Right. And I had said before he got there, I said, her name's Amanda. And I said, Amanda, I know she had just started Ritalin. And I said, would you mind please going and putting that away in your bedroom somewhere? Mike has struggled with prescription drugs. And she also has 3 young kids. And to no fault of her own, she forgot.
Yeah.
She forgot. And I honestly, it was the Lord's hand and he ordained all of this. And but Mike got into her prescription drugs, and the next morning she came up to me and she's like, Paige, I am so sorry. I forgot to put them away and I forgot to count them, but I'm missing 6.
She was missing some. That's when everything changed.
Right. So I sat Mike down and I said, we've already had this discussion and we've had it several times. In November, we had that discussion of like, I'm done. If this happens again, like we have 3 kids now and this is a life that I'm not subjecting them to. So if this happens again, for our family's sake, we have to leave. So this happened.
I was on the next flight out of Buffalo.
And we separated. He moved into our basement.
Into our unfinished garage.
Yeah, it wasn't a great place.
It wasn't a nice place.
And 5 days later, we found out we were pregnant with number 4. So that was fun.
Yeah.
It was the hardest, most difficult thing to walk through for a multitude of reasons. I was mortified just by the circumstances that it happened. Now looking back, I can see I'm so thankful that it happened that way because it gave me the accountability not to sweep it under the rug, because my best friends were there and we were in their home. And he gave me the accountability to say, no more, I can't do it. We can't do it. So for 3 months, 4 months, we were separated. I went to a lot of counseling because I don't know how to be separated. I didn't want this. I had spent our entire marriage making sure that this wouldn't have happened. And I had tied our lives so much together as marriage does that I didn't know how to untie it. And so I went to counseling, and she gave me really good steps to our circumstance of what does separation look like, and what did you do?
Whew. It was a lot to take in and a lot to apply to life, because I had to move out of my home. You know, I had to not see my kids, and I had to figure out life without her. And the weight of it just constantly daily crushed me. It literally forced me to do something I should have done before, which was seek help and seek out guidance from the Lord and from those around me. And so the first thing I did is I shouted from the mountains. I told everybody I knew.
Right.
Everybody. I met with,
and that's key,
dozens and dozens of friends and family, and you know, and I was trying to actually looking to escape. I was like, okay, well, I can move back to Michigan. I can move back to Michigan. I'll have work there. I'll have a place to stay. I can reestablish myself, you know, and then I have family in Washington. I can move there and do that. And my family was like, don't you dare leave those kids. Like, you may have lost your marriage, but you're not going to lose your kids. And being around them is the worst decision you can do. And so I stayed and met with our pastor and our elders and our friends, and just
tell me what your dad said on that phone call about integrity.
My dad said, you know, like, you need to start living a life of integrity. And he's like, and integrity is not on a scale from 1 to 10. Like, you can't be 8. You can't be a 9 on integrity. You either have it or you don't.
Right.
And here on out, like, you've been living, like, trying to live like a 5 or 6. And he's like, you're a 0 when it comes to integrity. You need to be a 10. You need to have it.
And that wisdom changed.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I had no integrity at that point. I mean, I was living in complete lack of integrity with half truths and stuff. So everybody knew. I started to go to counseling more. I was already going before that. I started telling the truth in counseling. You know, I was telling my counselor this much, you know, like getting, you know, it's like taking an antibiotic, like, well, I'm only gonna take the antibiotic for the 1 day. Thanks, doc. You know, like, I wasn't completing it. And I started getting into celebrate recovery and working the steps, and I was done. It was devastating. It was awful.
How did you get back together?
Yeah, that's a great question.
Let's get to the good part.
Yeah.
No, I mean,
It was not easy.
It was not easy. And part of that was the list that my counselor and I came up with of what did I need. So the pain that I felt is that I didn't feel safe. I didn't feel like I could trust Mike, obviously, because of what had happened. And so the steps were, I had hoped for reconciliation, but I was not going to tell Mike that at that point when everything happened, because I needed him to feel the weight of how bad this was.
Smart.
So my counselor and I talked about what did I need, and at that point we were about a month into our separation. And what I needed to see from Mike was that he was going to tell me the truth, even when it was hard. Yeah. That he was going to tell me when he was tempted, which he could not tell me and get away with. But I needed to know that even when it was difficult, you were still going to push through and try to have connection with me. I needed Mike to pursue God. Outside of that, nothing matters. It just doesn't. And through him pursuing God, that does bring safety to me, because God can work on everything. I can trust Mike to God. He's first God's son, you know, and little by little, Mike was doing it. I'm really good friends with our associate pastor, and I kept going to lunch with her. And each time she's like, how are you doing? How can I love on you? What's happening? And each time I was like, Mike is literally doing everything that I asked of him. Like I would ask him to come to me with the hard stuff, and he was coming to me. He had to go to Celebrate Recovery. He had to be in a STEP program. He had to be in counseling. He had to have accountability.
Multiple accountability people that I went to. And
yeah. And he was doing all those things, and he was meeting with all those people, and we read a book together. Like there, just everything that I had asked of him, he was meeting and exceeding. And so little by little, I was trusting him again. I like to have a lot of fun. And my small group, we have a couple small group, and they asked if we wanted to go to a couples trip to Florida. And I was like, yeah, I do. And Mike was like, really? Like, really, do we need to go on a couples trip? But I'm so thankful we did, because that was just the beginning of us again.
Yeah.
And gave us that time of figuring it back out. But by that time, he had been doing it. He'd been doing all the things that I had asked. And so we, little by little, first he was in the guest bedroom. You know, he was out of the basement, but we allowed him in the guest bedroom. And then eventually he made it back into our room and into our lives again. But it was Mike earning back trust.
Quit living out of my hamper, out of my laundry hamper, and quit sleeping in a mattress on a cold floor to the bed with my wife where I should have been.
Yeah. And you're still earning back that trust every day, aren't you?
Every day.
That takes a long time.
It does. And a lot of just opening up and sharing the things that are uncomfortable. And I just have to keep, our counselor says, like, water the things you want to grow. And I keep saying, like, Mike, I don't ever expect you to be perfect. I don't ever expect you not to fall into temptation again. I don't ever expect you to be sober, but I expect you to come to me. Like, I need you, when things get hard, to come to me and come to the Lord.
And she made it a very safe place for me, because I didn't feel safe for a long time. And she made it a very, very safe place. And even now, there are times when she's like, you know, she'll tell me, like, it's things like that make me not able to trust you. And it's like, oh, okay. Like, because we're still working on it. We're still working on our marriage. And it's like, not only do I need to be proactive, so does she, in letting me know what
I need,
what she needs, you know?
Right. I am so happy about this. You know, addiction, you know, it's vicious. Number one, it's insidious, especially pills. You can't smell it. You know, it's not on your breath. You're not staggering drunk. So it's very insidious. But, you know, one of the things about addiction is it makes you cling to the Lord every day.
Yeah.
I mean, you haven't had a pill all day today, have you?
Nope.
Yeah. Thank God. But it's every day.
Yeah.
You know, and you're, I mean, I just think that that's the one thing. Number one, I think everybody in the world should go to Celebrate Recovery. That's my opinion. That's a side note, but we all need that. But number two, I mean, addiction, it can cause you, in terms of being connected to the vine, it can cause you to cling, because every day you're clinging. And if you're not clinging, and we're all this way, but I mean, you're this close to just losing everything.
We're all one bad decision away from being that person who's strung out on drugs on the street.
Yes. Yes.
Knowing our own depravity, knowing how sinful we all are, really helps us to have grace and extend love to other people who are struggling. This week, Mike was telling me how the Lord had really showed him something really cool about the crutch. Can you share that?
Oh yeah. And so in my recovery, I mean, I've been sober my sober journey's been going on for about 1.5 years now. And I realized that I had been using the Lord as my crutch, not as the feet that I stand on. Like, I had been working my recovery on my own, but using him as support. And when the reality is, like, it's the other way around. Like, if anything, I'm the crutch. I'm the accessory. you know, and he is the steps, and he is the foundation, and he's the reliance, you know, that when I feel that temptation come up, it's not a conversation that Mike needs to have with himself. It's the conversation that I need to have with the Lord, and pleading with him,
Right.
because we are one bad decision away, but we're also one good decision away from keeping
Come on.
the good life that we have.
Yes. And life's going to get better every single day.
Yeah.
And it's crazy because you're, you know, the good life. One thing she has said to me for so long, even before this thing, is, you know, she goes, "We have a really good life," and I didn't understand what she was saying.
Well, because you were struggling with, like, really all in your own mind, because nobody else knew.
Yeah, but now like on the other side of things, I'm like, man, it really is, like, we do have a really good life, and I can see it now.
Isn't that, you talked about shouting it from the mountaintops? There's something so powerful about naming this. Hey, let me tell you, everybody, I'm not, you know, I'm not as bad as you say I am. I'm worse. You know, let me tell you the truth. Like, when you can tell the truth, it sets you free. I mean, like, I just think that that's another powerful thing about it. And it needs to be, the church needs to be better at this. Unfortunately, I think AA and Celebrate Recovery have a lot closer representation of the actual church maybe than the actual church, just because it's okay to not be okay. It's okay to shout it from the mountaintops. I am totally addicted to these pills. Totally. Help me, you know, let me, and to be able to say that out loud, it's like the beginning of the freedom and the grace and the life and that you guys are tasting. But I mean, can you imagine where you're going to be in 5 years and 10 years? I can tell you, Mike, you're going to help thousands of people. I just believe that, because there are so many people today dying in a pile, totally bound up, spiraling down with no answer. When you can tell them, let me tell you where I've been, let me tell you what God did for me. I'm getting chills, by the way. When you can say that, and it's the truth about your own, you talk about ministry. This is not like what you learned at Moody Bible Institute anymore. This is real. Like, you guys are living it.
Absolutely.
And Paige, let me say something to you. I'm not trying to preach, but I am.
I love it.
My show. It's my show. I can preach if I want to. Paige, you were forced to make really hard decisions. The thing about the partner in this situation is you're put in this unbelievably horrible position where you have to make a tough decision. You're forced to. You made it. You did that in faith with great courage. So I want to just applaud you. And speaking of ministry, I mean, there are thousands of people in your position that are having to deal. What in the world do I do? Addiction's the most confusing thing on the planet. It's like I said, it's insidious, it's unseen, it's just horrible. And there are so many people in your shoes that can't make that hard decision, or don't trust God enough to be able to say, buddy, you're out. You're out. I love you. You're out. Like, to
say that you're out. Yeah.
What's that?
Like, I love Mike enough to say you're out.
Yes. That is so brave.
And
that is so brave.
She's the hero in this story.
No, not Christ is the hero in this story. And
well, you're kind of a hero too. Thank you, Mike. I agree with Mike. Well, I just want to bless you guys, because we didn't even talk about your podcast. The podcast is Laugh So You Don't Cry, which I think is genius. I can see the joy in you guys. So I'm going to listen to your podcast, because I need to laugh. I like laughing.
Yes, we try to tell our story in a funny way, because we just have to have love and laughter with it. But Mike Got Caught 1 and 2 are the episodes that deal with just the story, the elongated version of this. And then the rest are just funny stories from our life and trusting God and what the Lord has taught us.
Yes, and you're going to have a million stories with those 4 kids. And then as this, you're going to get stronger, Mike, every week and month and year. If you cling every day, you're going to get, and life is going to get better every day. And I can't wait to follow your story. But I think your ministry is probably, in my opinion, going to explode, because I know there are thousands of people in both of your shoes that they need hope, they need God, they need help, they need truth. And they need somebody, and when you're somebody who's been there, you have great opportunities. So bless you.
Thank you, Dean.
Thanks for coming on.
Thank you.
We'll see you next time.